Hi everyone, thank you for joining us for our latest live stream event from Museum Sheffield. Today I'm very excited to say we're going behind the scenes a bit at our collection store and looking at our social history collection through a series of objects through time that tell the story of Sheffield through different time periods. We'll be talking to Clara Morgan, our Curator of Social History. And unfortunately our museums are still closed at the moment, but we are looking forward to welcoming you back when we can. Obviously being closed is having a huge financial impact on the charity that looks after these collections, as well as Western Park Museum, the Millennium Gallery and the Graves Gallery. So if you are able to donate today, you can do that at museums-sheffield.org.uk/donate, and we are very, very grateful to anybody who does donate. Also today, if you have any comments or questions, do feel free to pop them in the Facebook comments box below, and we'll have a little Q&A with Clara at the end of her event. So on that note, we'll go over to Clara now to begin looking at some of these fantastic objects from the social history collection.
Hello everyone, welcome to the social history collection. Today I've got out a range of objects that I hope will demonstrate diversity of the collection through time. So we'll start with this lovely recipe book. So this dates from 1721 and was written by a lady called Sarah Lord. You can see that she has made the most of her paper, written in the beautiful handwriting, but tiny letters. It's a recipe book really through for recipes that are appropriate throughout the year. So she's got mince pies in it, pancakes, all sorts of things, and we can read some of the titles of these recipes. So she's got to pickle fresh herrings, to make French barley cream, to make a lemon pudding, 2 M's on the lemon, and to make vinegar. So we're really fortunate to have something so old and so personal in the collections. Moving on, this is a stay busk. So this was for the front of a lady's corset to kind of hold it tight and help tighten it, and was given to an unknown lady as a love token. So I'll push it down so you can see. It's got these beautiful carvings. It's dated April 1790, and you can see all the hearts on it. This brown mark, actually I should say, the initials of the lady who it was probably given to are here, but this brown mark, which is an old burn, has obliterated this initial here, but we know the second one is B. So this busk at some point in time has accidentally got a little bit too close to the fire. On the reverse is this beautiful poem, which I'll read out. So it says, I'll range around, I'll range the shady bowers and gather the sweetest flowers. I'll ship the garden and the grove to make a garland for my love. So that's quite a special, intimate thing for a lady to have about her person. Moving on, we've got these lovely shoes. Now these were said to have been owned by Mary Queen of Scots, who was imprisoned in Sheffield and the surrounding area about 14 years, from 1570 to 84. Mary Queen of Scots does have a lot of relics associated with her, more than she probably could legitimately have owned in her lifetime. And sadly, these shoes are also part of that wishful thinking. So they belong to a landlord who ran the Howard pub in Sheffield, had quite a collection apparently of items, and these were part of it. So sadly, they are not Mary Queen of Scots shoes, but they date from the early 1800s. They've faded a bit through time. I'm sure this would have once been a really beautiful coloured kind of floral design. But I've included them just to show that people recognised that Mary Queen of Scots staying in Sheffield, well, being imprisoned in Sheffield was an important event, and they wanted to, have a little bit of that. So moving on, these are items relating to the Sheffield flood in 1864. So this is fairly well known locally, perhaps not so much nationally, but on the night of the 11th of March 1864, the Dale Dyke Reservoir, the embankment developed a fault, a crack, and it split. And this photo, which I'll maybe hold up a little bit, shows you the massive split in the side of the embankment. All the water rushed out of that, the entire dam, all the way down to Hillsborough, out along the kind of all the way along to the Wicker, and some of the force of water went out to Rotherham as well. Unfortunately, really sadly, people's homes and businesses were in the path of that water, and around 400 people died as a result. Their houses couldn't withstand the force of all that water, plus all the rocks and the trees and debris. So houses partly collapsed, businesses and their buildings were completely flattened, and this is another photo showing that. So this is Wisewood Rolling Mills. You can see some of the debris that's been brought down by the water. This originally have had some kind of building over the top of it, wood and stone, but all that is left really are, well, bits and this machinery that would have been sunk further into the ground. We're quite lucky in a way. The date of this disaster, if you can be lucky about disaster, 1864, and photography was becoming more widely used, more people could do it, and people seem to have walked the path of the destruction and taken photographs all the way along. So we're able to kind of track the reports in the newspaper and some of the stories that came after with the photos that showed the horrible destruction. So, as I said, the flood destroyed people's homes and livelihoods, and some people really were left with nothing. And there were various sort of charities and societies that tried to help. So the British Foreign and Bible Society gave out these Bibles called Flood Bibles, and you can see this bit of paper is pasted into the front, and it says, "A gift of the British and Foreign Bible Society to replace the Bibles lost in the Sheffield flood during the night of March 11th, 1864, with a couple of biblical verses afterwards." And these are really meant to provide kind of support for people at a time of need. They're called Flood Bibles locally, and I'm sure there are families out there that still have them. Okay, so moving on to the First World War. Well, actually, the period just after. So during the First World War, Sheffield had various hospitals to help treat men who had been injured. One of them was Warncliffe War Hospital, and a group of ladies who'd attended Sheffield School of Art ran art classes as a kind of therapy really, and to give some of the men something to do while they were convalescing. And one of the things they started to do was painting. I think they painted onto fabrics. They painted light shades and also cushions. But one of the things the ladies realised when they were working with the men was that found it really difficult to manipulate the brushes, particularly if they had arm injuries or arm amputations. So they worked out you could kind of strap a brush onto people's arms, and they could paint through stencils. And then the ladies, Annie Bindon Carter and her friend Edith Jagger and others, developed this into a viable business, really a charitable kind of business after the war, to give those men some employment. So they ultimately moved out to Norton, and they had what's called the Painted Fabrics workshops, and that's where they made beautiful items like this for sale. So you can kind of see really clearly here the stenciling. This is a little kind of handkerchief bag from the time when people would have things like that, and a little, well, a bit bigger pyjama bag, obviously like a matching pair. So the company ran for, well, until the 1950s, provided an income and also a home for the men and the families who worked there. And we've got a beautiful selection of items made by the company in the collections here. And Sheffield Archives have a paper archive, and you can also look at lots of photos of the workshops online at picturesheffield.com. So moving on, another few years to the Second World War. So this is an incendiary bomb that was dropped on Sheffield during the Blitz in December 1940. So these were dropped down en masse in sort of sticks of bombs, they were called, and they were designed to set the roofs on fire. which would then provide a target from above for the big bombers to come afterwards and inflict even more damage. So this one was found unexploded after the Blitz, and was kind of made safe on the moors after by a policeman who it was his job to obviously tidy up areas afterwards. So it's important, kind of a sobering reminder of the Second World War. So moving on again into the 1980s. So this is a student briefcase from a lady called Jean. She was a student in Sheffield in the early 1980s, and it is covered with nearly 40 stickers representing the causes and the protest movements that she supported at that time. So we've got the anti-nuclear, which was big in Sheffield, with South Yorkshire declaring itself a nuclear-free zone. Coal not dole, hands off local government, save our steel, obviously another big event in Sheffield in the early 1980s, People's March for Jobs. This one is, I'll be there on the 28th of April, unwelcoming Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher came to visit Cutler's Hall in the middle of the miners' strike, which is not popular with some people. On the other side, more of the same again. This is also quite fun because it references Threads, the very disturbing film filmed in Sheffield about the effects of nuclear war, which I know still traumatises people today. This bucket was also used by Jean. She became a member of the local Labour Party, and the constituency was twinned with Corton Wood pit. So Jean and others collected money for the striking families, and this bucket was used to collect money on Saturdays at the Moor and at Sheffield United home games. I really like this for it it's just a simple plastic bucket, but it's covered in stickers of the time, and it's got quite an important little story to tell. So I'll just move these out of the way a little bit. So all these objects have been collected a few years after the event, but this is an example of contemporary current collecting relating to the biggest event at the moment, which is coronavirus and lockdown. So these were they came about as part of an appeal from Sheffield hospitals to find a way to make it easier for people who are in intensive care units but whose family couldn't visit them. So they put out an appeal for people to knit or crochet or to sew pairs of hearts, which were sent into the hospital, and one heart would go with the patient in intensive care and one would go out to the family, and it was just a way of making that connection. This proved really popular, and the hospital were able to give us a little selection of hearts afterwards for the collection to help represent this time. So that was a quick run through of some of the lovely items in the social history collection. I hope you've enjoyed it, and hope to see you soon.
Hi, well, I hope you enjoyed that virtual look behind the scenes at our social history collection in the collection store. I certainly thought that was really interesting, like some really nice objects there through history. Clara's just about to join us again in a second for some questions from our virtual Q&A, so here she is now. We'll ask a few questions. Thank you for that, Tor. Okay, so we've had a question. How do you decide which objects get to go on display?
Oh, so there's a number of ways that can happen, and it very much, you tend to start with an exhibition or a display proposal. They come from different places, so an external group or person might propose something, and then you kind of work out if it's doable, whether you've got the objects, whether you need to collect more items. Or the other way, I suppose, is that curators generate an idea themselves that fits with a particular theme, or maybe there's an anniversary coming up. So there's all sorts of different ways that a display, and then the objects that are then chosen to go into that display end up on display. Yeah.
Okay. And how about the items in the collection? Where do all the items in the collection come from?
With this collection, they're mainly items that people from Sheffield have offered to us, very kindly as donations. So quite often people are getting to the point when they're having luck in their houses, or maybe they're downsizing, they're clearing out from a relative, and they find sort of a treasured family item that they don't want anymore, but they don't want to throw away, so they offer it to us. Occasionally we buy things, but that's quite a rare occurrence because of finances. And often the things in the social history collection aren't necessarily very monetarily valuable, they're more emotionally valuable or historically valuable for the history of the city. Yeah, and people just get in touch and offer us things. Occasionally I do try and put out appeals for certain kinds of objects, if there's a particular display or an exhibition. That's another routine as well.
Oh, are there any objects or type of objects that you would like to acquire in particular?
I think generally it would be really great to update our toy collection. So I think that dates from the early 1800s and it should go up to the present day, but most of the toys probably from the 1980s, they're a little bit sparse, perhaps because people are still holding on to their favourite toys and they're not quite ready to offer them to a museum yet, or they think that maybe they're too modern and we're not interested. But I think we would be, so that would be nice to update. I think this collection, the next big projects really are to try and make it reflect Sheffield's more diverse communities. That's definitely something that we need to work on over the next few years.
Fantastic. And finally, have you tried any of the recipes out in the recipe book?
I haven't. I suppose the first step, I can't take the recipe book home with me, so the first step is to try and find a good one, and maybe I should try the pancakes, but I seem to remember that involves a lot of eggs, that pancake recipe. It's like 6 eggs and a lot of cream.
It's a good project to work on.
Yeah, maybe I can do that and show it to you one day.
Okay, fantastic. Well, thank you so much, and thank you for doing that tour. That was really interesting. And we will have lots of other virtual events coming up, so do keep an eye on our Facebook page and website for our other virtual live stream events. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.